This is my truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me my truth. Tell me what the truth feels like. This is my truth. Yeah, truth.
Hello everybody. I would like to start this Fishing for the Truth, welcome by the way, by saying that this year, 2019, the Down Syndrome Awareness Week, that's what it's called, is March the 18th to the 24th, and World Down Syndrome Day, just checking with you that I've got these right, is on the 21st of March. And so that is why I've come to join my very old, not old as in you're not really old, very dear, go back a long way to school, long way, friend Vicky, who these series of video blogs are called Fishing for the Truth because everybody's truth is personal to them, and today's truth is coming from Vicky, who lives this truth every day with your gorgeous boy Eddie.
Yes.
So that's what we're here to talk about today, amongst many other things I'm sure, and the dynamic of being a mother to a child with Downs. Gosh, where do we start? Because there's so many things I want to ask you as far as the misinformation that's out there and your journey with all of this. Let's start at the beginning, so to speak. We know a song about that. And you found out with Eddie, who's your second, you've got Elsie,
Yes, yep.
who is 6. And with Eddie, you knew at the first scan, is that right, there was a 1 in 2 chance?
Yes, and when I was 12 weeks pregnant or thereabouts, you go for your first scan, and the second time round I hadn't even thought about Down syndrome. With Elsie, because I was 39 when she was conceived,
Okay.
I was extremely conscious about Down syndrome. I knew it was higher prevalence in older mothers.
Okay.
Panic. Went to the first scan, everything fine. Got my little girl, wonderful. Really wanted to try for a second, and fell pregnant with Eddie, and went along, hadn't even thought about it, and then just realised as the scan was progressing that the lady doing the scan just kept going back and back to the new cold fold, which is at the back of the neck, and a particularly thick one or a lot of fluid there is an indicator of Down syndrome.
Okay.
And so I'm halfway through the scan and I'm sort of like so excited to see a little figure on the screen again. And I thought, she's gone back to it again, and she's gone back to it again. And I'm mentally trying to think, what was the measurement? What's the optimum measurement? And then she said, I'm just going to do some calculations. And that's looking a little high to me.
Okay.
And my husband, Stuart, was completely nonplussed and sort of looked at me like, what does this mean? And I'm looking at him going, they're checking for Down syndrome. And then he's sort of like, oh, okay. And I turned and I watched her, and she's clicking away, and then I can see her looking at the screen. And my brain started going, not 1 in 2. I can cope with anything else except 1 in 2. Don't tell me 1 in 2. 1 in 10, 10% chance. 1 in 5, 20% chance. 1 in 2, it's 50% chance. She turned around and she said, I'm sorry, it's 1 in 2. And I'm not sure I can explain everything that went through my head in that second. I had more time to think about it a little bit later.
Yeah.
But there was this, it was a gut punch. It was a real intake of breath. And then my first instinct was, right, let me be the one then, because I'm keeping this baby.
Okay.
So that was all that. But we walked out in shock. And we were given some information, and we were told about a group called ARC, which is Antenatal Results and Choices, I think.
Okay.
And I'd heard about the Harmony test or the NIPT test, which at that point
Non-invasive prenatal
testing.
Okay.
And that has got a huge success rate in predicting Down syndrome. Not so much with other conditions.
Okay.
But it's normally very accurate at predicting Down syndrome.
And it is what it says as far as non-invasive, so there's no risk to the baby?
No risk to the baby. They take a blood test from
Okay.
you, and at that point send it off to Hong Kong, and 2 weeks later
Okay.
we'd find out what the result was. So I think the very next day I booked myself into a clinic.
Did you have to pay for that?
I paid for
That's
it.
not available
Yeah.
on the NHS.
No, that sort of came in June at certain hospitals, and I was being tested in March. So I sort of just missed that. But it was
Okay.
like, right, I need to know what I'm dealing with. That's kind of my personality. What am I dealing with?
Yeah.
So I went up and was scanned on Harley Street, and they said to me, well, the measurement at the back of the neck is less than it was 24 hours ago, but we don't normally recommend people have the test when it's this high, because we'd say that's a pretty strong indicator.
Mm.
And I was like, just do the test, please, that's great.
Is the test about, sorry if this is a silly question, is it about, he said that it's a strong indicator anyway, but does the test determine, because it's a spectrum condition, isn't it? So you don't know exactly what it is you're going to get, so to speak.
No test can tell you.
Okay.
But it was an anxious 2 week and going up and down and reading everything I could about Down syndrome, and I would say to anyone ever in that position, don't read Wikipedia, just don't.
Okay.
It's very, a lot of it is all very bald facts of the child could have this wrong with them, that wrong with them, this wrong with them. It's not the reality of a life with a child with Down syndrome.
Okay.
For the most helpful advice, if you're thinking of keeping your child, I would say talk to the Down Syndrome Association
Okay.
or other parents with Down syndrome, or Googling blogs and getting real day-to-day, this is my life information. If you are thinking of not keeping your child, then ARC are good people to talk to.
Okay.
But my impression of talking to ARC is that they were very much there for the women who were considering termination
Yeah.
and needed to make peace with that
Okay.
decision. And I would also say to anyone being scanned and given any kind of negative feedback or result about a potential child, pregnancy, it's something I feel quite passionate about. If this is a wanted pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
don't let the words Down syndrome, spina bifida, anything like that, don't let that put you off. That is not, it doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
Right.
Not in a wanted pregnancy. The worst word you'll ever hear is incompatible with life.
Right.
If you were pregnant and you heard that, that would be beyond devastating.
Yeah.
Whereas a physical or a mental condition, you can deal with that. Anyone can deal with that. And
Yeah.
just know, just read up on it and know, have more of an idea of what life is going to be like, but don't assume that your life is over, or that child will suffer or not have any quality of life, because I genuinely don't believe that's true.
Right.
The result came back from Hong Kong. They said high risk. We said, right, that's that then.
Okay.
And because we'd paid for the test privately, we were also able to say, because we thought, and it was important to me at that point to find out the sex of this baby,
Right.
because I wanted them to become a personality in my mind.
Mm.
And they said, you're having a little boy. We were like, right, that's our little boy. He's got Down syndrome. We'll do this.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. So
Intense.
it's interesting because there was never any question that you weren't going to keep him. It was just about then arming yourself with as much information as possible.
I had I guess you'd call it a chemical pregnancy just before I fell pregnant with Eddie. So literally the month before, I felt a bit peculiar, had a small bleed, and suddenly thought, oh, I've heard of implantation bleeds, and I did a pregnancy test. And this was the week my period was due, and it came back positive. And I thought, oh God, crikey, I'm pregnant. We need to move, we need to do this, we need to do that. 48 hours later, my period kicked in with a vengeance.
Okay.
So what I actually had was probably a fertilised egg that didn't implant properly. There was something wrong
I've
with
never heard
it.
of that.
So
Gosh.
I was pregnant for sort of 48 hours that I knew about.
Yeah.
So psychologically it was a bit of a and it made me realise how much I would like another child.
Okay.
And then the next month I fell pregnant again, and that child turned out to be Eddie. And now we're talking about a woman who's 41, and so my gut reaction was, I'm keeping this baby. I'm sick as a dog for the first 3 months of pregnancy. I'm not going through that again. But then thinking about it logically afterwards, I thought, well, one, who am I to turn around and say, you're not good enough, I'm not keeping you. You're conceived in love, but hey, no.
Yeah.
Two, you're 41. What's to say that if you got rid of this baby, you'd be able to fall pregnant again?
Yeah.
What's not to say the next child might have Down syndrome as well? You know, you've got what you wanted. You wanted a second child. You are incredibly bloody lucky to have your baby. So from that point of view, no, Down syndrome wasn't a deal breaker. You actually get treated really well, whilst at the same time feeling very conflicted about what your baby is going to be like, because you don't know how society is going to treat them and how they are going to cope with whatever health issues they may or may not have.
Yeah.
But you get many more scans to check growth and to check for anomalies, and basically you get treated really, really, really well by lovely hospital staff.
Right.
Which I was throughout my pregnancy. The worst thing was a scan at a different hospital at 20 weeks, which was an anomaly scan, where a locum doctor told me that they also thought Eddie might have what's called a TOF, or TOA, which is it's trachea esophagus fistula, or tracheal esophageal atresia, which basically means the windpipe and the food pipe fuse, or one of them just stops and doesn't go into the stomach. And although there was a small stomach bubble shown on the scan, she was like, no, this is what it sounds like to me, which means your baby won't be able to swallow. We'll have to have an operation shortly after birth. And I walked out of that appointment absolutely distraught. And there was a scan I'd gone to by myself, and called my husband and went, this is unfair. Give me back my little boy with Down syndrome. I can cope with that. Don't put this on top of it as well. Yeah. And I made contact with a wonderful society that is out there for parents of children who do have this condition, which is incredibly rare. And they told me it was very difficult to pick up on a scan. It's mostly diagnosed post-birth. And 6 weeks later, when I went back for a follow-up scan, armed with a million questions, they went, oh no, it's probably just, he doesn't swallow much because he's got Down syndrome. It's fine. But that was the closest.
Careful before
where I really was thinking, I'm 20 weeks now.
Yeah.
It might be too much. How can we do this? This poor little boy. And I'd researched, operations in America and Poland and you didn't have that.
Was it a case of the locum sort of speculating somewhat, or kind of? Surely you shouldn't really mention that unless you're absolutely.
Well, that's what I.
Otherwise,
think.
it's scary, isn't it? It's
that
unnecessary.
Terrifying.
Yeah, unnecessary.
That actually saw me taking myself off to hospital at 24 weeks pregnant. Absolutely paranoid. I basically had a sort of an anxiety breakdown, and they went, no, the baby's fine, you're fine.
Okay.
Because I've just been given.
And you could have been spared that.
Inaccurate information. Yes. Yeah.
So once, so the support was good during the pregnancy, and then once Eddie had been born, what was he, £8.3?
He's a big boy. Yes, he was £8.3.
Is there then a continuation of a good network of support for you, or?
Yes, I mean, if you've got a diagnosis of Down syndrome is a known quantity. It has existed for the entirety of the human race. Down syndrome has existed. They know exactly what to do with you. They know exactly what to check for. They know what kind of services you're going to need. And the most important advice was the doctor just saying, just go home and love your baby. Don't worry about all the appointments and things at this point. They will come. There'll be a point when you'll be sick of appointments. So so although there is a lot to be done in terms of general education, and I know a lot is being done by Down syndrome groups within hospitals and medical professionals and using the right language.
Right.
My experience was very positive with the team that I was lucky enough to have.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how was Eddie when he did arrive? I know that I remember reading one of your posts about him getting the all clear as far as his heart when you'd taken a trip. So what were the issues with Eddie as a individual and his own kind of condition for him?
Very often there are heart or stomach sort of digestion problems, and that's what everyone was focusing on. He has a slightly unusual configuration in his heart, but it works perfectly fine. We're very lucky, he's never had to have open heart surgery.
Okay.
He has, people have valves in their hearts, and often with Down syndrome you can have what's called a dual valve, so it's split in two, and you have to hope that the blood's flowing the same way. Eddie has a tri-leaflet valve, he's got it split into three.
That's just showing off.
I know, it really is. But all the blood's going the right way. He had a tiny hole which fixed itself.
Okay.
So he was very lucky on the heart front.
Right.
He's under sort of 2-year checks with Royal Brompton, who are amazing. But yeah, no problems with heart.
Right.
He did have a very small stomach bubble, so he does have a slightly unsafe swallow, so we have to thicken liquids to make it easy. It's to stop aspiration. Basically, if food or liquids start pooling too round, there's a chance you could breathe them in instead of swallowing them properly. It takes them a while to clear a swallow. And when he was born, he had slight thickening around one kidney, so he was on prophylaxis antibiotics for about 9 months.
Right.
The biggest issue he had was sleep apnea. So, yes, so he would just very snuffily breathing and then stop and then start again.
Gosh.
So when he was about 18 months old, he had his adenoids taken out and grommets fitted because he suffered from gluea as well.
Did you sleep at all during that time? I mean, if you know that that's happening, how do you sleep?
Not great. We actually slept worse after that because on top of the operation he then got chickenpox, and then he was immune compromised for 3 months, and we moved, and Elsie wasn't sleeping and he wasn't sleeping and nobody was sleeping, and that was bad.
Okay.
That was the bad months. But up until then he was doing okay. It compared to what I know other families have had to go through in the first year of life.
Right.
He did very well health-wise. But it's important to say that some of those children who were having open heart surgery at 8 months are now way ahead of Eddie developmentally.
Right.
They're doing brilliantly. They go from strength to strength. So it's swings and roundabouts.
Yeah.
And it is a spectrum. You don't quite know how the Down syndrome will affect each and every child, but it's all different.
Absolutely. Same with any child, I guess.
Exactly, same with any
You know,
child.
someone will go, oh, mine's reading already, and they'll all do what they do in their own time.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about Elsie? How about being the older sibling? Has it, as far as you can tell, impacted her? Or, mind you, children are so good with just,
I don't know.
life is what it is and they get on with it. And
I think
how aware is she of?
I don't know that she's aware so much of the condition.
Right.
I think she wishes her brother could play with her more.
Okay.
We get that. She's very good with him, and then she's also sort of violently smother love with him. Sometimes I think she treats him a little bit like a doll.
Okay.
Sort of like, but he's getting better at going "ah!" in her face or just pushing her out the way. So, you know, good siblings. The other morning we found her climbed into his cot with him, playing music to him, one of his little toys, and the two of them were just sitting with each other playing. It was just
That's
lovely.
gorgeous.
So no, I think she loves him very much. I think she's very happy he's around. But I don't know if she's kind of got the Down syndrome thing. We've not.
Why would she, I suppose?
We've
I
not
mean,
sort
it's
of-
just Eddie. It's just her brother, isn't it?
It's just Eddie. And
I think there was a lovely line that you had in one of your posts once about how siblings don't count chromosomes.
yeah, I think someone's put that on a t-shirt. As in, I think I probably got it off a t-shirt.
Oh, have you?
But
Oh, I was
yeah.
going to say, you should put that on a
We
t-shirt.
should put that on a t-shirt. No, siblings don't count chromosomes. And also, they're more alike than different. That's the other thing that's really important. Your child will look like you and their siblings more than they'll look like another child with Down syndrome.
Right.
Yeah.
Gosh. That makes me think of, I know a little bit of a tangent, but the role that the media have to play, or anybody that is putting information out there about any kind of condition, but in this case Down syndrome. There was that one post by the Daily Mail about green tea. Do you know the one I mean?
Oh boy, yes, I do.
They have a massive responsibility with anybody who has a voice that reaches the masses has a responsibility. But they did that article about green tea minimising the...
I think they may have used the word cure, which is just like... They may have said something like green tea could cure Down syndrome.
I'm going to have a quick...
Something like that, where you're just like, what?
They also,
no!
Didn't they also call them Down syndrome sufferers? Sorry.
Right, okay, this is where I get my...
Wait, let me just, before you get on your doodah.
Right.
Green tea minimises the facial features linked to Down syndrome. And over to you.
Right,
Okay.
Yes. When discussing Down syndrome to a pregnant lady, chance of rather than risk of, huge different connotations in that.
Yeah.
There's a chance your child may have. There's a risk. So bad association.
Yeah,
Everything's wrong. Cure. You can't cure Down syndrome. Minimising the facial features. It's a chromosomal disorder. You can't. No, you can't fiddle with chromosomes. It's done. It's done at the point of conception. It is done.
And also, what message does that? Why would you want? Like, what message does that give?
Love her. I love my mother, but some of the clangers that have come from my mum. You know, they can have operations on their eyes so they look more normal. Say what now?
Oh gosh.
It's okay to be different. I think that's the biggest message that all the Down syndrome groups are trying to make, which they do. It's the reason it's the 21st of March is it's 3 copies of the 21st chromosome. So that's why it's always the 21st of March. It's World Down Syndrome Day.
World Down Syndrome Day. Okay.
And
where people are encouraged to wear odd socks.
Odd socks. Be as absolutely clashing as you possibly can.
Because
it's okay. It's fine. If someone goes, no, your socks don't match, you just go, yes. Because why not?
Well observed.
Well, yeah, it's fine to be different. So I think, why should people with Down syndrome have to look like us? Which is kind of the inference there. It's sort of, they will be picked on less if they look more normal. If they look more typical. And I think about this a lot as a mum, because I know quite a lot of, when you have a child that has additional needs, you fall down this rabbit hole and you end up in Wonderland and you meet whole new tribes of people.
Right.
And you have to find your tribe quite early on. You find your groups on Facebook, you find the people near you that share common experience, and you bond and you hang on to each other.
Yeah.
And in Wonderland there are children with cerebral palsy and there are children with autism. How much and there are children with chromosomal deletions as well.
Okay.
Down syndrome, it's visually apparent and there is a pathway for them. People know how to help. With chromosomal deletion, it can take years even to get a diagnosis.
I know it's a silly question because it is what it says on the tin, I guess, but what is it? Never heard of it.
It's basically, there is something, your child is having an issue in some way developmentally, and then they may find out that part of the chromosome did not carry across, which is a chromosomal deletion. So, and then you get very, very specific little groups because it's very rare.
Right.
Again, amazing kids.
Yeah.
Amazing kids, amazing parents, but so much harder to get that diagnosis so you can say, look, I can prove it now.
Yeah.
This paper says that my child has a chromosomal deletion, therefore I need extra physio, I need this, I need that, and people take you seriously. Children who are diagnosed with autism look normal.
Yeah.
Look absolutely normal, or whatever normal is, typical. But then something gives them away in conversation.
Right.
And adults or children might be like, oh, that's a bit weird. And you think, is that harder? Is it harder to have the unseen condition rather than the visual condition? I don't know, but...
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's one I ponder about sometimes.
It's because there are, what you said a moment ago about Eddie or children with Downs being picked on, or
They can be targeted, yes.
and there will be people, I'm sure, who will think, well, of course they will, because that's life and that's how people are. But we shouldn't just roll over and say that that's how society is. Surely, we should be. It's so arrogant to think that everybody should look a certain way, or because there is no normal. We've just labelled stuff as normal. It's a man-made thing.
It's a myth.
Exactly. It's something that we've concocted.
Yes. I think that society seems to accept what looks like the norm more than visible difference. I do believe that that's true.
Yeah,
and I think that
sadly.
we've all got a slight ingrained reticence, and I will totally put my hand up to this prior to having Eddie.
Right.
If I was in a hospital situation and there was a child who had cerebral palsy or Down syndrome and they're kicking off, you'd be thinking, I don't want to, oh dear, I don't know than that, or I think I'll just step out of this, or yeah, maybe, I wouldn't want to invite that child round, or something like that. Opposite, as soon as you're the other side of the mirror, I'll be straight up to that mum now, going, can I do anything to help? Are they hungry? You got something? Do you want some food? So it's like, or just being there, just go on and say, hey, how you doing? And sometimes if you haven't got Eddie with you, they might think you're a little bit weird because you've just gone up. So you immediately say, oh, my son has Down syndrome. You sort of say, I'm with you.
Yeah, you're saying
I'm on your side.
I'm in the club.
You're in a safe space here. I think society generally, you're different, or you make me uncomfortable, I'm going to just avoid you. And with Down syndrome in particular, it feels like they're trying to eradicate an entire section of our society. I mean, there's been a documentary on the BBC. In Iceland now, the abortion rate is 100%. So if you are born with Down syndrome in Iceland, it's because you've slipped through a net. So you might be the one person in the country with the condition.
Why is it so high? Is it a lack of accurate information about what that means? Are people scared? Do they abort because they don't know exactly what
I think there's
they're
that,
dealing with? Or...
And that is what the societies are desperately trying to do, is help people, educate a bit more what is going on. And the fact that there are so many people with Down syndrome who are out there achieving things in the world. And also, as a society, how do we measure achievement and validity and the right to be born? It's very difficult, and it saddens me that Down syndrome has been singled out, as in the testing is now very accurate. The non-invasive testing is very accurate for Down syndrome. So they focused on that because there is a likelihood that the child will need a lot of medical intervention. So is it the cost to the state? Is that why we're saying this child should not be born? They don't suffer, they're a baby. They just want to be loved and nurtured, and then they'll grow into a child and they'll grow into an adult. But is that an unfair pressure to put on society? That's kind of the impression you're left with.
Right.
And there are people who do argue that. I mean, Richard Dawkins has argued that if you found out you were pregnant with a child with Down syndrome, you have really a moral imperative to abort that child and try again.
Why?
Because of
the cost.
Because of society. Yeah, the cost of society. You can have an abortion. I'm on the bandwagon now. You can have an abortion for Down syndrome, cleft palate, 39 weeks gestation. You can abort a full-term baby if they've got a cleft palate, which is a fixable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can. It's...
Why?
Oh God.
I mean, I'm not sitting here with you thinking that, and not respecting the fact that some people won't choose to keep a child with Downs. And that's absolutely...
And I have no judgment.
Yeah, no, I know you don't.
It is their choice.
I just want to make sure, we say that.
And I should also say that, because it's a spectrum condition, then there will be some children born with Down syndrome who are profoundly disabled.
Right.
as well as the sort of high achievers and the sort of general middle of the road.
Yeah.
But in some ways that is also true of any child. Scans can only do so much.
Absolutely.
I'm not religious,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not coming at it from a religious point of view. I just really do believe that if you've been trying for a baby and you have a baby and they tell you that baby has Down syndrome, it is not the end of your world.
Right.
It really isn't. And I do know an awful lot of children with Down syndrome who have been rainbow babies as well.
What are rainbow babies?
Rainbow babies are the parents have previously suffered a late miscarriage or a stillbirth,
Okay.
or they basically they did not have their child. Their child died, which
Right.
is just desperately, desperately sad.
Yeah.
And then the rainbow baby is the one that comes afterwards and helps with the healing.
And
I-
oh my gosh,
I
that's
do believe-
beautiful.
If you've ever been unlucky enough to be one of those parents that have had to walk away from hospital without your child or have lost your child in gestation, I know that you would be profoundly grateful to have almost any child.
Right.
So that when you've had the worst, someone turns around to you in a second pregnancy and said, "And your child has Down syndrome."
Yeah.
It might not be what you wanted to hear, but you're like, "I have a child.
Yeah.
It is my child, and I will love this child, and they will be what they will be."
I mean, it's impossible to say, but you mentioned about the chemical pregnancy
Oh,
before.
yes.
Did that impact how you felt when you found out about Eddie with your scan, or would you have felt that way anyway, as far as keeping him? Like, was it one of those? This might be a bit woo-woo. Was it one of those kind of little things from the universe pre-Eddie to just kind of? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I've not seen it that way before, but it did absolutely emphasise to me how much I wanted another child.
Right.
It really did.
Not that you wouldn't have wanted him
that.
anyway, probably, but just it's like an extra little kind of.
It was another kick. It was like we've got to the 12-week stage this time. You know, I haven't.
Yeah.
And being aware of age and everything else, and again, my mother, God love her. One of the great things about the Down Syndrome Association is you can read up if you're pregnant and you've just been given a diagnosis, and there's all this paperwork that you can read, and it's brilliant. It's very informative,
Okay.
and it includes a helpful guide you can send to friends and family members going, if you don't know what to say, this will help.
Oh, that's good.
And it's got some suggestions of things not to say.
Okay, that's also good.
And the first thing she said,
Did they interview your mum for that bit?
they really didn't. But I sent it to her, and the
Okay.
first thing she said to me is, "Was it because of your age?" And you're like, "Oh, Mum." Yeah,
I'm guessing
it's-
that's on the list of what not to say.
what not to say.
Okay.
Yes, because it feels like an attribution of blame.
Yes, it's your fault.
But
Yeah.
in my head, if I've had a chemical pregnancy that didn't work, then there might have been something wrong with the egg or the sperm combination there.
Right.
So then I have another pregnancy and they say to me, Down syndrome. Now it can come from either side, you don't know.
Mm.
But you do think, we are getting old, love, and it could be your eggs aren't optimum anymore. You don't know, so you have to kind of live with that guilt. Was it something I did, or has my body betrayed me somehow?
Right.
But then you have the reality of your child. So I got my shock, and I will again say very honestly, I cried for 24 hours.
Okay.
Sobbed. I mean, I had to grieve, and I think everybody needs to do that. You have to grieve the child you thought you were going to have.
Right.
And you have to make peace with it, take a deep breath, and get on with it.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like it's something that everybody needs to kind of read up on, regardless of whether they're connected with it on a day-to-day basis or not. Because awareness and information is what stamps out ignorance, and
yeah.
you know, I say that if I didn't know you, then maybe I wouldn't have found my way to wanting to understand more about this anyway.
Hmm.
Things become less weird or different when you know about them.
Oh, the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Paralyzes anyone.
Because I think that must be all it is when people retreat away, like you said, before you had Eddie, you might have kind of recoiled from
Just
certain...
not going to go there.
Because you don't know what it is. You don't understand the situation as well as you obviously do now that you're in the club in some way, shape or form.
But I will, yes, this is a good story.
Okay.
Took Elsie to the Isle of Wight when she was little, probably about 18 months old, and on the last day we went to a soft play, and there was a little girl with Down syndrome there who was running around all over the place with her little brother, and I couldn't get over her hair. She had the sharpest bob ever. I mean, she was gorgeous, and typical characteristics, and she was enjoying everything, but her tongue was out on the slide and this, that, and I got chatting to the mum. And it was very much from my sort of, I don't know how you do it, I don't think I could or do a child with Down syndrome. Much before.
Okay.
And I had this brilliant conversation with a very down-to-earth mum, and it turned out that she was actually getting her little boy tested for autism as well, and I was thinking, oh my God, well, how do you cope? And I was very much, I walked away from that going, well, A, that kid is amazing, and the mum cut the hair, that is brilliant. But also B, I'm so glad that's not us.
Right.
Fast forward
Which is a
couple of
perfectly
years.
understandable...
Yes, aren't we smug in our nice little, no, daughter's fine, isn't she? Have Eddie, whole new world, think back to that conversation and think, well, I've seen a little girl running around having a whale of a time with her brother. That will be him one day. Went off to a Down syndrome group meet, bumped into the mum because she's from Kent, and I was like, you won't remember me, but do you remember being in a soft play in the Isle of Wight? And she was like, oh my God. And I was like, I know.
Oh gosh.
And and you just think, yeah,
Wow.
okay, if you want to get woo-woo, then maybe that was
That's amazing.
very helpful. Very helpful.
What did you say to her the second time round?
I said, thank you. Because it was great to meet you and your daughter, and that gave me a lot of strength when we got the news. No, I've seen little kids enjoying themselves.
That's amazing. In that moment, she would have had no idea that,
Yeah.
and you would have had no idea that you were
Yeah.
going to get something from that. Oh. I love it. I'm all about the woo-woo. I love it. Oh gosh. One thing I'd like to read to you. Well, I'm actually going to read you back your own words. Sorry. I've been going through your Facebook. That's okay though, because I'm a friend, so it's fine. And trying to find things that I remember reading at the time that impacted me, and taking screenshots of them so that I can ask you about them again. Every September, August, September time, I've got plenty of friends with children. It's all about back to school. It's all about milestones in a child's life, where they're at, what they're doing. And last year, your post about Eddie really just took my breath away. So he'd been going to a day nursery for over a year, but this particular specialist nursery, when you were dropping him off, felt, what am I reading? It felt more important as his educational health care plan will get drawn up this year, which was last year, and he's technically a preschooler.
Yes.
Okay. You said when your child has additional needs, you spend most of your time fighting to be a positive parent, focusing on all the things your child can do while squishing the glass half empty litany, which in your case, consists of can't walk, can't feed himself, non-verbal, which lurks constantly in the back of my mind and shouts louder every time Eddie is around his peer age group. It's even hard reading updates on his specialist group sites sometimes when Eddie's younger peers with Down syndrome are hitting milestones you know are still a long way off for him. This was a bit that got me. So Vicky writes, so I had a wobble as I walked away. There was my baby, who has literally just turned 3, sitting on a carpet surrounded by bigger kids, playing with toys more appropriate for a 1-year-old. I didn't want to leave him. I went home, occupied myself, and picked him up a few hours later. The feedback? He had a great morning. He went outside as well as staying in the classroom. He enjoyed bells, in brackets, thought they were hilarious apparently, the rain stick and the spinning toys, and his key worker thinks he is the happiest little boy, so smiley and an absolute joy. And then you write, there is so much you can't do yet, my darling, but oh my god.
I got these for me.
There is so much you can't do yet, my darling, but so much you can. Winning people's hearts? Oh hell yeah, nailed it. So this is the thing. It's so easy for people to focus on the negatives, for want of a better word, as opposed to the positives and everything that Eddie has to offer the world. But obviously there are milestones that are going to take him longer to get to. But so that was last what, August, September. And this year he's going to be going to...
And this year he will be going to a special school because the EHCP plan was drawn up. And as I was telling you briefly in the car this morning, I had to fight to have it changed, but I've just checked. They have changed it. They've made all the changes. He's been offered a school place. So even though he will be the youngest in his year, he will have people working towards specific goals with him.
Right.
And actually, since then, he is starting to feed himself. So I'm already thinking...
I know, I saw it.
You've done one there, sweetie. Well done.
Oh, amazing.
He's got a little harem going at the nursery now. There's a couple of children. There's quite a lot in our area that don't necessarily have English as a first language.
Okay.
And there's one particular little girl who adores him, has apparently renamed all her dolls at home Eddie, as her mum was telling me this morning, and who will run in and will do, hello Eddie, and sign to him and saying, friend. English is not her first language. She's learning Makaton ahead of picking up English so that she can communicate with Eddie, which is just, oh my goodness. Every time you fill in the DLA, Disability Living Allowance form, or you complete your EHCP, you have to find reserves of strength that you didn't know you had, because you do want to see the positive in your child. My child can do this, my child is great,
Right.
my child does. But what you have to say is, but they can't do this, and they can't do that, and they don't do that, and it becomes so soul destroying. I mean, you are their advocate, you are their warrior, you are a negotiator, you're sometimes an arbitrator.
Right.
You are just their voice because they don't have one.
Yeah.
Kind of literally in his, but actually he's very vocal when he wants to be. And sometimes you have to really squash the, or not let it out in the wrong place. You have to squash the Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver.
Okay.
So you're in a room with people and someone starts and you're like, you want to argue with me? You want to argue with me? I'm a special needs mum. You want to bring it, you know. And you have to try, like, no, don't let her out. Just be calm, smile, smile, and say, well, how about we do it this way, and get someone on board who agrees with you, and then they'll try it.
Right.
Yeah. So that does take me back. But he has got. I mean, he's got his key worker wrapped around his finger. And when we went round the special school, there are a couple of other children there with
Right.
Down syndrome as well. And they all said the same thing. They just have us wrapped
Right.
around their little finger. They're just big smile, stubborn as you please. You know, absolutely immovable objects if they don't want to do something,
Right.
which does sound like my son. But just full of personality.
Yeah.
Lovely kids to be around. I think some people think you have to have a special calling to work with special education needs kids, and you probably do. But at the same time, I think everyone should be open to them in society, or sit next to them on the bus.
Yeah.
Or if you're in a mainstream school and there is a child with additional needs in your child's class, invite them out.
Yeah.
So ask them on a play date. You don't need to fear. The parents will be with them.
Yeah.
It can make a huge difference, both for the parents, but also for that child to feel really included.
Yeah.
I mean, inclusion is only true inclusion if you get everybody on board. Yeah, it's...
Not to mention what they can teach you.
Oh God, so much about just living in the now, appreciating what you've got, and the kids are amazing, and the celebrations when they do hit a milestone or something, it's daft. You're sort of like, Prosecco in the fridge, let's do it, yay! He just picked up a piece of bread. It forces you to slow down and be a bit more appreciative. I mean, Elsie is a typical child. She hit all her milestones in typical fashion.
Right.
It was fascinating to watch because she was our first.
Yeah.
I look back, it all happened in a blur. You'll find a lot of people who would say that they wouldn't change their child for the world, but they would change the world for their child.
Absolutely.
Which actually, I think, if I was being completely honest, I would like to make things a bit easier for Eddie.
Right.
But would I take the Down syndrome away? No, I wouldn't take the Down syndrome away because he wouldn't be the boy he is.
Right.
He is, that's who he is, and I love him regardless, but sometimes I do wish things were easier for him.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
When do things become labels that then separate, that then create a them and us? As we do as a human race with virtually everybody, we love to label.
We do love to
people,
label because
and we love to separate ourselves in some. Well, that's all labels do, I think, is separate people.
we like to look for neat explanations, and that's what a label does. It's like,
but it
this
creates a
child is-
division, doesn't it? Because you're
It
not the
does.
same as me. Whereas, surely we should be looking a little bit deeper than that at the person, not the label.
Well, that's kind of the whole. How do you quantify what is a valid life?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I mean, let's say this child is acting slightly strangely. Oh, you've got autism, so boom, let's slap the autism label on you. So therefore, you must be just like this other child, bam, who has autism. And you're like, well, no, they're two completely different people with their own personalities, and it might reflect differently. But that, I would say, is a label. Down syndrome is a condition you're born with.
Yeah.
So it's. But even so, they'll want to label there. Well, is he a high functioning one, or is he on the bottom end of the spectrum? Again, it's sort of like you've got to quantify within a range. I've got to find a pigeonhole to put you in, if you see what I mean. And I kind of despair that we do that with kids.
Yeah.
Well, with people as well, but especially with kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question.
Why don't
because
you
I think-
know?
I don't know at all because I think.
God, you could sell a
label.
trillion books if you knew the answer to that, probably.
Oh.
Because it's it goes to the crux of just the human race, doesn't it? And why are we here?
And why can't we be different?
Everybody has a reason for being here.
Yes. So why say before birth that a child with Down syndrome in particular
You've already decided.
is invalid?
Yeah.
And it's not going to contribute to anything. Interesting fact. People with Down syndrome in adulthood are very likely to develop Alzheimer's. Very likely as they get older. So that is presumably due to the makeup and construction of the brain. People with Down syndrome are therefore vital with Alzheimer's research.
Yeah.
And are trying to help with Alzheimer's research. So maybe instead
Wow.
of eradicating an entire section of our society, we should be embracing them and saying, you could be the answer. You're going to help us fix this problem.
Again, there's a reason for being here. It's each individual's task to try and find out what that is and why their unique path in life is what it is.
Yeah.
But, so, gosh, well, you did very well. You didn't cry. I was right on the edge. So for this, this Down Syndrome Awareness Week, is there anything you would like to first of all say to anybody who has a similar truth to yours, or anyone who may be struggling with?
If you are struggling, find your tribe.
Okay.
that would be my big advice. Whatever diagnosis you've been given or a bombshell that's been dropped on you, find your tribe, find
Right.
people. You will not be alone. Find the people that you need to talk to, and talk
That's
to people.
key, isn't it?
Yeah. And in terms of awareness,
Yeah, for anybody who isn't living this truth, what do you say to try and open people's hearts and minds a little bit?
oh gosh,
No pressure.
no pressure whatsoever. Just be open-minded. I mean, if you've got, when I got the diagnosis, we realised we didn't know anybody with Down syndrome,
Right.
at all. And maybe that's because 9 out of 10 diagnoses do result in termination. In this country,
That's such a high rate, isn't it?
it is. But then we've sort of family friend of a friend had a daughter, so we went and met her, and she's an adult now, and had a great day out. And I wish we were a kinder world. I guess maybe that's all I'd say, which doesn't really answer the question as well. It's very hard to.
It doesn't, but
change people's beliefs. But I would say
it doesn't. But we can only be a kinder world if we're inclusive of everybody, regardless of whether they fit into neat little boxes or not.
yeah,
And goodness knows, gosh, some of the most brilliant, groundbreaking minds are the people who aren't confined within a neat box.
absolutely.
You know.
And if you meet someone, if you meet a parent that is struggling with a child that has any kind of additional needs, have a chat with them, or go up and approach them, or be nice. Think about your language. There's lots of stories coming out in the press in the last couple of weeks because it's coming round to Down syndrome awareness again.
Okay.
So lots being raised. There was a lady who reported she got on the bus with her son, and an older lady in front was really quite rude about him.
Okay.
You won't necessarily change generational beliefs, but things have changed a lot. I mean, in the 1980s, if a child was born with Down syndrome and had a life expectancy of 25 and were pretty much banged up in institutions, that has changed,
Right.
60, 70 plus. Hopefully, if you know someone with Down syndrome, they'll be around a long time. They're great people. They're people like you and me.
Yeah.
Have a chat.
Excellent advice. Yay! Anything else you'd like to say?
I'd like to thank my... No.
I hereby present you this award
The tissue
as
board.
Wonderful Mum Award.
Thank you very much.
And just generally brilliant person, so thank you. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please click on the like button, and you can always subscribe to my channel. There are plenty of more videos out there to watch from Fishing for the Truth. Vicky just watched my 2018 year in review recently, didn't you?
Yeah.
And were saying to me earlier that you didn't have any idea that I'd spoken to people about such a wide variety of subjects.
Yeah.
Fishing for the Truth is all about quizzing people on their truth, regardless of the subject. Just trying to open my own eyes, my own mind, and hopefully bring some comfort or some information to people watching as well. So thank you very much.